The situation in Cambodia has been alarming for several years now. We have witnessed the widespread suppression of democracy and human rights in the country as the Cambodian government places severe limits on fundamental freedoms of the press, speech, and association. In 2017, the president of the opposition party, the Cambodian National Rescue Party, CNRP, Kimseng, was arrested and indefinitely imprisoned on spurious and politically motivated charges. Kim's arrest was followed by a government decision to dissolve the opposition party on fictitious claims that it was colluding with the United States government to overthrow the Cambodian government. The unprecedented move crippled the only viable opposition ahead of nationwide elections. The ruling Cambodian People's Party, under the leadership of Hun Sen, continues to erode Cambodia's democracy by ordering the arrest and harassment of hundreds of CNRP leaders, civil society leaders, pro-democracy activists, and government critics. We must demonstrate our support to the Cambodian people as they fight against the growing authoritarianism in their country and struggle for the restoration of democracy and respect for human rights. With the passage of this legislation, the House sends a strong bipartisan message raising the costs on Cambodian officials who continue to suppress freedoms and undermine democracy in Cambodia. Congress must take concrete steps to hold the Cambodian government accountable for its backsliding of democracy and human rights and steer the country back on the path towards free and fair elections. This is an important measure.
Rule in Hun Sen for decades. Under his reign, he has denied Cambodians almost all of their political rights and prevented free and fair elections from taking place. In recent years, Hun Sen has resorted to violence and attacked peaceful protesters. He has undermined Cambodia's democracy by dismantling the country's only viable opposition party. The work of NGOs has also been limited, and critical media outlets have been shut down. Like many other dictators, he fears the day when he will no longer be in power. As the beacon of hope and freedom to the rest of the world, a key pillar of our foreign policy must be to support the expansion of democracy in other countries. The Cambodia Democracy Act will help push back on Hun Sen's regime by applying asset blocking and visa sanctions on any government officials or security forces who have undermined the democratic process or committed human rights abuses. The strong bipartisan bill has passed the House in successive Congresses and is a touchstone of congressional support for the people of Cambodia and their desire to democratic governance.
A response to Prime Minister Hun Sen's ongoing crackdown on its political opponents, which began in the run-up to the Cambodian elections back in 2018. He arrested Kimseng, the leader of the Cambodia National Rescue Party, on bogus charges and then proceeded to ban the whole party and then persecute other leaders of that party. Hun Sen also shut down NGOs and independent media, including the National Democratic Institute and Radio Free Asia. Unfortunately, 4 years later, this crackdown hasn't let up. Hun Sen has kept the bogus charges hanging over Kem Sokha's head and prohibited him from participating in any political activity. He's also continued to target opposition politicians as well as civil society activists and journalists. In fact, starting last November, mass trials were held against opposition party members. As a result, next year's commune elections will not have viable opposition party representation, which means that once again, Cambodia's elections will be neither free nor fair. Sadly, this latest crackdown is nothing new. Hun Sen has ruled Cambodia since 1985, 36 years, making him the longest-serving head of state in Southeast Asia. To date, Hun Sen hasn't really faced any stiff consequences for this behavior from the United States, and that's embarrassing. That's why the Cambodia Democracy Act imposes sanctions on those who participated in Hun Sen's illegal, arbitrary attempt to smother democracy. By targeting those directly responsible and holding them accountable, it's our hope that we can get Hun Sen and his cronies to realize that the only path forward for that country is to allow free and fair elections. We must not forget that the principal victims of Hun Sen's repression are the Cambodian people themselves. Next month, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Paris Peace Accords, which clearly promises them democracy.